Think you know everything about Mike Rowe's beloved return to Discovery Channel? This 2020 spinoff wasn't just a nostalgic road trip, it was born from pandemic chaos, featured a crew with surprising backstories, and hid production secrets that even die-hard fans missed. From opera-singing origins to QVC firing scandals, from RV driving disasters to COVID-era filming restrictions, the making of this 4-episode reunion special revealed more behind-the-scenes drama than any dirty job itself. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about dirty jobs. Road Trip. Fact 1. COVID pandemic birth. Dirty Jobs Road Trip exists today only because the coronavirus pandemic completely derailed Mike Rowe's original plans for 2020. When March of 2020 arrived, Rowe had been eagerly preparing to reunite with his old crew and hit the road filming brand new episodes of traditional Dirty Jobs, continuing the format that had made the show a beloved fixture on Discovery Channel for nearly a decade. He was ready to get back out into the field, visiting hardworking Americans across the country and diving headfirst into the messiest, most challenging occupations he could find. However, the global pandemic had other ideas entirely. As lockdowns spread across the United States and filming restrictions made traditional television production nearly impossible, Rowe watched his carefully laid plans crumble. The hands-on nature of Dirty Jobs, which required close contact with workers in their actual job environments, became completely incompatible with social distancing guidelines and health safety protocols that were rapidly being implemented across every industry. Rather than simply cancel his comeback plans altogether, Rowe and his production team at MRW Productions and School of Humans decided to pivot to something completely different. They realized that while they couldn't safely film new Dirty Jobs during the pandemic, they could still create something meaningful by bringing the original crew back together for a reunion road trip. This creative solution allowed them to celebrate the show's legacy while working within the constraints of pandemic-era filmmaking. Rowe himself explained that his hope back in March had been to be out in the world right then with the old gang, doing a brand new batch of Dirty Jobs episodes. But as he put it, the universe had other ideas, and traditional production had been impossible ever since COVID hit. This unexpected obstacle led directly to the creation of Dirty Jobs Road Trip, transforming what was meant to be a straightforward continuation into something entirely unique, a nostalgic journey that probably never would have existed without the pandemic forcing everyone to think outside the box. Fact 2. Opera singer-host origins. Long before Mike Rowe became the face of America's dirtiest jobs, he spent 7 years performing as a professional opera singer with the Baltimore Opera, a career that began in 1984 when he literally crashed an audition with no formal training or experience. Rowe has openly admitted that he faked his way into this prestigious position, driven by two very practical motivations that had nothing to do with his love for classical music. He desperately needed to get his union card to work in entertainment, and he wanted to meet women. Back in the early 1980s, Baltimore had a tight entertainment industry where you couldn't get work as an actor or television host unless you belonged to the Screen Actors Guild or the American Federation of Television and Radio Arts. Since Rowe couldn't get into either of those unions without already having union work, he found himself trapped in the classic catch-22 situation that many aspiring performers face. The Baltimore Opera offered him a backdoor solution through the American Guild of Musical Artists, which would give him the union credentials he needed to pursue his real goals in television and acting. Despite having no formal opera training, Rowe somehow convinced the Baltimore Opera to accept him during a performance of the famous opera Rigoletto. And he ended up staying much longer than he ever intended. What started as a calculated career move turned into a 7-year commitment where he genuinely learned to sing professionally and developed real skills as a performer. His natural talent and willingness to learn on the job served him well during this unexpected chapter of his career. Decades later, in 2014, Rowe proved that his opera training had stayed with him when CNN host Brooke Baldwin asked him to demonstrate his singing abilities during a live television interview. Without hesitation, he performed a brief aria right there in the CNN newsroom, surrounded by working journalists and camera crews, showing that the voice training from his Baltimore Opera days had never really left him despite his transition to hosting shows about the grittiest jobs in America. Fact 3. QVC triple firing legend. Mike Rowe holds the bizarre distinction of being fired 3 times from the QVC shopping channel, yet somehow getting rehired after each termination, creating one of the strangest employment stories in television history. This unusual cycle began in 1990, when Rowe took a bet from a friend that he could land a hosting job at QVC, which led him to audition by talking about a pencil for 8 straight minutes, until the network hired him on the spot for their overnight shift. Working the graveyard hours from midnight to 6 in the morning, Rowe quickly discovered that he had a serious problem with the fundamental concept of home shopping television. Instead of enthusiastically promoting the products that crossed his desk, he found himself unable to resist making fun of items like the Catsack cat toy, which was essentially just a sack for cats to play with, and various other questionable merchandise that he was supposed to sell with a straight face. Rowe has explained that there was an interesting tension at QVC between hosts who were genuinely good at selling products and generating revenue versus hosts who were entertaining enough to keep viewers watching during the lonely overnight hours. At 3 in the morning, he discovered that he was much better at getting people to watch what he described as the train wreck of his career rather than actually convincing them to buy anything, and he felt it was his duty not to disappoint audiences who tuned in expecting entertainment. His approach of openly mocking products and occasionally belittling viewers who called in to make purchases was clearly against everything QVC stood for as a business, yet management kept bringing him back each time they fired him. Rowe worked at QVC for 3 years total, from 1990 to 1993, until he finally quit on his own terms rather than waiting for a fourth firing. He later admitted that his terminations were entirely justifiable and credited QVC with teaching him the valuable television skill of talking for long periods without saying anything of real substance. Fact 4. 5. Man RV limit. The entire cast of Dirty Jobs' Rowe'd Trip was determined by one simple logistical constraint that had nothing to do with television production or creative decisions. The mini RV they planned to use for filming could only physically accommodate 5 people for extended travel. This seemingly minor detail ended up making one of the most important creative decisions of the entire project, forcing Mike Rowe to carefully select which members of his beloved original Dirty Jobs crew would join him on this nostalgic journey across America. During the peak years of Dirty Jobs, Rowe had worked with dozens of crew members who had contributed significantly to the show's success over its 8-season run from 2005 to 2012. Many talented camera operators, sound technicians, producers, and other behind-the-scenes professionals had been part of the Dirty Jobs family at various points, each bringing their own skills and personalities to the production that helped create the show's unique chemistry and authentic feel. However, when it came time to choose who would squeeze into the cramped quarters of the RV for weeks of filming, Rowe had to make some difficult decisions about which relationships and working partnerships were most essential to recapture. He ultimately selected what he considered his core inner circle, the people who had been at the very center of Dirty Jobs during its most successful period and who represented the heart of what made the show special. The final crew consisted of David Barsky, the executive producer and co-host who had been Rowe's closest collaborator throughout the original series, Doug Glover, who served as director of photography and captured the show's distinctive visual style, Troy Paff, the camera operator, who had worked alongside Rowe through countless messy and dangerous situations, and Christopher Jones, the audio technician who ensured that every conversation and sound effect was crystal clear despite the challenging filming environments they encountered. Rowe explained that while many others had contributed greatly to Dirty Jobs over the years, these 4 men were the core team who had been at the center of the show's identity. Fact 5. Dave Barsky's driving disasters. Dave Barsky, the longtime executive producer and co-host of Dirty Jobs, took on the responsibility of driving the mini RV throughout the entire road trip journey, a decision that quickly turned into one of the show's most entertaining ongoing storylines. Mike Rowe himself publicly admitted that Barsky's driving performance was less than stellar, stating bluntly that it does not go well when describing his producer's abilities behind the wheel of their traveling home and filming headquarters. Barsky had been Rowe's trusted right-hand man throughout the original Dirty Jobs series, handling the complex logistics of coordinating shoots across all 50 states and managing the countless details required to make each episode successful. His expertise lay in organizing production schedules, negotiating with job sites, and ensuring that the crew could capture authentic moments of American workers doing their jobs, but apparently none of these professional skills translated into competent RV operation. The driving situation became such a notable part of the filming experience that it evolved into a running gag throughout the 4-episode series, with the crew regularly making jokes at Barsky's expense whenever they were on the road. This good-natured ribbing reflected the close friendship and comfortable working relationship that had developed between these men over their years of traveling together during the original show's production, when they had logged thousands of miles crisscrossing the country in search of the next dirty job to feature. Rowe has described the road trip experience as being first and foremost a reunion among old friends, where they could catch up, clown around, and have a few laughs together while reminiscing about their shared adventures. The fact that Barsky's driving became a source of constant entertainment perfectly captured the relaxed, informal atmosphere they were trying to create, showing audiences the genuine camaraderie that existed between these longtime collaborators when the cameras weren't rolling, and they were just five guys sharing the road together in a cramped recreational vehicle. Fact 6. Forrest Gump. Reference origin. Mike Rowe created his own colorful way of describing how Dirty Jobs became a surprise hit when he coined the phrase that the show Forrest Gumped its way on the air in 2004, using the beloved Tom Hanks character as a metaphor for how his series accidentally stumbled into massive success without any grand master plan. This self-deprecating comparison perfectly captures Rowe's humble perspective on how a simple concept about showcasing overlooked American workers somehow evolved into one of Discovery Channel's most popular and enduring programs. The Forrest Gump reference works on multiple levels because, just like the fictional character who found himself at the center of major historical moments through pure chance and good intentions, Dirty Jobs never set out to become a cultural phenomenon or launch an entirely new genre of television programming. Rowe originally conceived the show as a straightforward tribute to his grandfather, a skilled tradesman who had taught him to respect the value of honest work and the people who perform jobs that others might consider beneath them. When Rowe uses this comparison, he acknowledges that the show's success came not from sophisticated marketing strategies or network executive genius, but rather from the same kind of authentic, unassuming approach that made Forrest Gump such an endearing character. The series resonated with audiences because it presented real people doing real work without pretension or manufactured drama, allowing viewers to connect with the fundamental human dignity found in all types of labor. Rowe has expressed genuine amazement at how this simple premise grew into what he calls the granddaddy of essential work programming, inspiring dozens of similar shows and fundamentally changing how television portrays blue-collar professions. The Forrest Gump comparison also reflects Rowe's characteristic sense of humor about his own career trajectory, suggesting that sometimes the most meaningful achievements happen when you focus on doing the right thing rather than chasing fame or fortune, and success finds you rather than the other way around. Fact 7. 4 thematic episodes. Only. Dirty Jobs' Road Trip represents a dramatic shift in scope from its predecessor, consisting of only 4 carefully structured episodes compared to the original Dirty Jobs series, which aired 169 episodes across 8 seasons from 2005 to 2012. This condensed format required the production team to completely rethink how they would organize and present their content, moving away from the original show's job-by-job approach to a more thematically organized structure that could maximize the impact of their limited episode count. Each of the 4 episodes was built around a specific theme that allowed the crew to explore different aspects of American work culture while traveling in their RV and reminiscing about past adventures. The first episode focused on infrastructure, examining the essential systems and services that keep modern society functioning, while the second episode centered on the theme of innovator, highlighting people who had found creative solutions to workplace challenges or developed new approaches to traditional problems. The third episode explored the concept of isolation, looking at jobs that require workers to spend long periods alone or in remote locations far from civilization, which provided rich material for reflection given how much time the original Dirty Jobs crew had spent traveling together to isolated work sites across the country. The final episode was dedicated to the theme of animals, revisiting some of the most memorable encounters the show had featured with creatures ranging from farm livestock to exotic species, often in situations that were equal parts educational and entertaining. This thematic structure allowed the show to function more like a greatest hits compilation than a traditional continuation, giving longtime fans the opportunity to revisit favorite moments while providing context and behind-the-scenes stories that had never been shared before. The limited episode count also meant that each installment could be more densely packed with content and memories, creating a concentrated dose of nostalgia that captured the essence of what made Dirty Jobs special without requiring the extensive production timeline that a full season would have demanded. Fact 8. School of Humans Mystery. One of the two production companies behind Dirty Jobs' Rowe'd Trip carries the unusually contemplative name School of Humans Limited, which stands out as remarkably philosophical compared to the typically straightforward business names found throughout the reality television industry. Most production companies in this field choose names that either reference their founders, describe their services directly, or use generic terms like entertainment or media, making School of Humans an intriguing departure from standard industry naming conventions. The company is led by executive producer L.C. Crowley, who worked alongside Mike Rowe's own MRW Productions to bring the reunion special to Discovery Channel. While many television production companies opt for names that sound corporate and professional, School of Humans suggests a deeper interest in exploring what it means to be human, which actually aligns perfectly with the underlying mission of Dirty Jobs, as a series that has always focused on celebrating the dignity and worth of people regardless of what type of work they do for a living. The name becomes even more intriguing when you consider that Dirty Jobs has essentially functioned as an educational program disguised as entertainment, teaching audiences about occupations they might never have known existed, while highlighting the skills, dedication, and humanity of workers who are often overlooked by mainstream media. In many ways, each episode of the original series served as a lesson in human nature, showing how people find meaning and satisfaction in their work, even when that work involves challenging, dangerous, or unpleasant conditions. School of Humans Limited has been involved in producing both the original Dirty Jobs series and the Rowe'd Trip spin-off, suggesting that this philosophical approach to naming reflects a genuine commitment to the show's deeper purpose rather than just creative marketing. The partnership between School of Humans and MRW Productions demonstrates how the production team maintained continuity not just in terms of crew members and format, but also in their fundamental understanding of what made Dirty Jobs resonate with audiences who were hungry for authentic stories about real people doing meaningful work. Fact 9. Grandfather Tribute Roots. The entire Dirty Jobs phenomenon traces back to Mike Rowe's desire to honor his grandfather, Carl Noble, a skilled tradesman who had profoundly influenced Rowe's understanding of work and the value of people who build and fix things with their hands. What began as a simple tribute to one man's dedication to his craft eventually grew into a cultural movement that celebrated millions of American workers, but Rowe has never forgotten the personal motivation that started it all, and continues to find ways to keep his grandfather's memory alive through his various projects. Carl Noble represented everything that Rowe admired about the American work ethic, embodying the values of craftsmanship, reliability, and taking pride in doing a job well regardless of whether anyone was watching or offering recognition. Rowe has spoken about how his grandfather could build or repair almost anything, approaching each task with the kind of patience and attention to detail that seems increasingly rare in modern society, and how watching him work taught important lessons about the dignity that comes from mastering a useful skill. The influence of Carl Noble on Rowe's worldview became so significant that when Rowe decided to launch his own line of Tennessee whiskey, he chose to name the brand Nobel, as a way of ensuring that his grandfather's name would live on in a product that represents quality craftsmanship and attention to detail. The whiskey line serves a dual purpose, honoring the memory of the man who inspired Dirty Jobs, while also generating proceeds that benefit the Mike Rowe Works Foundation, which provides work ethic scholarships to students pursuing careers in skilled trades. Rowe has described Dirty Jobs as evolving from what began as a simple tribute to his grandfather into what he now calls the granddaddy of essential work programming, creating a beautiful symmetry where honoring one grandfather's legacy led to celebrating the contributions of countless other hardworking Americans. The fact that Carl Noble continues to be remembered through both the show's ongoing mission and the whiskey that bears his name demonstrates how deeply personal connections can inspire projects that end up touching millions of lives. Fact 10. Union Card Opera Hustle. Mike Rowe's entry into the Baltimore Opera was entirely strategic, designed to solve a frustrating employment problem that plagued aspiring entertainers in 1984 Baltimore, where the entertainment industry was tightly controlled by union membership requirements that created seemingly impossible barriers for newcomers trying to break into television, theater, or commercial work. The city's entertainment scene operated under strict union rules that prevented anyone from getting professional acting or hosting work unless they already belonged to either the Screen Actors Guild or the American Federation of Con-Ed, Television and Radio Arts. But joining these unions required having professional work experience that was impossible to get without already being a union member. This classic catch-22 situation left Rowe and countless other aspiring performers trapped in a system where they couldn't get work without union cards, but couldn't get union cards without work, creating a frustrating cycle that seemed designed to keep outsiders permanently locked out of the industry. Rowe discovered that the Baltimore Opera offered a potential backdoor solution to this problem because opera singers were required to join the American Guild of Musical Artists, known as AGMA, and membership in one entertainment union could sometimes provide pathways into other unions within the broader entertainment industry. Rather than spending years trying to find some other way around the union requirements, Rowe decided to take the direct approach and simply join the opera, even though he had no formal training in classical singing and no particular passion for opera as an art form. His plan was to use AGMA membership as a stepping stone toward his real goals in television and commercial work, treating the opera as a practical necessity rather than a career destination. The strategy required Rowe to learn an aria well enough to pass an audition, which he somehow managed to accomplish despite his lack of experience, and then commit to actually performing professionally with the Baltimore Opera while he worked toward his ultimate objectives. What began as a calculated career move to solve a union problem ended up lasting 7 years and giving him genuine musical training that would serve him throughout his later television career. Fact 11. Post-production in Atlanta. While Mike Rowe and his crew traveled across America in their mini RV filming Dirty Jobs' Rowe'd Trip, all of the complex post-production work that transformed their raw footage into polished television episodes took place hundreds of miles away in Atlanta, Georgia, at a facility called Moonshine Post-Production. This geographic separation between filming and editing is common in modern television production, allowing specialized post-production houses to handle the technical aspects of creating finished episodes while production crews focus on capturing content in the field. Moonshine Post-Production took responsibility for every aspect of turning the crew's road trip footage into broadcast-ready episodes, handling everything from basic editing and scene organization to the more technical processes of color correction and audio mixing that give television shows their professional polish. The facility assigned colorist John Peterson to work on the project, making him responsible for ensuring that all the footage shot in different locations under varying lighting conditions would have a consistent visual appearance when viewers watched the finished episodes on Discovery Channel. Audio mixer Anthony Nolan handled the equally important task of balancing and enhancing all the sound elements captured during filming, from the conversations between crew members inside the cramped RV to the ambient noise of various locations they visited along their journey. His work involved cleaning up dialogue, recorded in challenging acoustic environments, adjusting volume levels to ensure everything could be heard clearly, and creating the seamless audio experience that viewers expect from professional television programming. The post-production team also included online artists Patrick Perry and Christina Cromer, who handled the technical aspects of assembling the final cut, and additional color specialist Grant Reynolds, who worked alongside Peterson to perfect the visual presentation. Post-supervisor Drew Sawyer oversaw the entire process, coordinating between all these different specialists to ensure that the finished episodes met Discovery Channel's broadcast standards and captured the nostalgic, intimate atmosphere that made Rowe'd Trip such a unique viewing experience for longtime Dirty Jobs fans. Fact 12. COVID testing protocol. Before Mike Rowe and his 4 crew members could begin their nostalgic road trip across America, they had to navigate the new reality of television production during the coronavirus pandemic, which meant that all 5 men underwent COVID-19 testing to ensure they could safely travel and work together in the confined space of their mini RV. This testing requirement represented a significant departure from the freewheeling production style that had characterized the original Dirty Jobs series, where the crew could simply show up at job sites without worrying about health screenings or medical protocols. The testing process was just one of many pandemic-era adjustments that production companies across the entertainment industry had to implement during 2020, as studios and networks scrambled to develop new safety procedures that would allow filming to continue while protecting cast and crew members from potential exposure to the virus. For a show like Dirty Jobs' Rowe'd Trip, which involved multiple people traveling together for extended periods and visiting various locations, these precautions were especially important since any positive test result could have shut down the entire production. Fortunately, all 5 crew members tested negative for the virus, clearing the way for them to proceed with their planned reunion journey, but Mike Rowe couldn't resist making light of the situation with his characteristic sense of humor. He joked that after spending years working on dirty jobs, where they had been exposed to every imaginable type of filth, grime, and unsanitary condition while filming in sewers, garbage dumps, and other notoriously dirty environments, it was likely that their time on the show had rendered them immune to everything. This humorous observation reflected the reality that the original Dirty Jobs crew had indeed encountered countless potentially hazardous situations during their 8 seasons of production, from handling toxic materials to working in environments filled with bacteria and other contaminants, making them perhaps uniquely prepared to face whatever health challenges the world might throw at them, including a global pandemic. Fact 13. Essential Work Granddaddy. Mike Rowe has proudly claimed that Dirty Jobs evolved into the granddaddy of essential work programming, a description that proved remarkably prescient when the coronavirus pandemic suddenly thrust the concept of essential workers into the national spotlight more than a decade after his show first began celebrating these same types of jobs. When the original series premiered in 2005, the term essential worker wasn't part of everyday vocabulary, and most television programming focused on glamorous careers or dramatic storylines rather than showcasing the people who keep society's basic infrastructure functioning day after day. Throughout its 8-season run from 2005 to 2012, Dirty Jobs consistently highlighted the workers who handle society's most necessary but least celebrated tasks, from sewage treatment plant operators and garbage collectors to infrastructure maintenance crews and food production workers. These were exactly the same types of jobs that would later be classified as essential during pandemic lockdowns, when governments around the world suddenly recognized that certain occupations were so critical to maintaining civilization that their workers needed to keep reporting to work even when everyone else was told to stay home. Rowe's insight about the importance of these overlooked professions turned out to be more than just good television programming. It was an early recognition of a fundamental truth about how modern society actually functions. While most media attention focused on white-collar careers and celebrity culture, Dirty Jobs was quietly documenting the real backbone of American infrastructure, showing audiences that the people who fix pipes, collect trash, maintain power grids, and process food are not just doing jobs that someone has to do, but are performing work that is absolutely vital to everyone else's survival and comfort. The pandemic validation of this perspective gave Rowe's granddaddy claim additional weight, demonstrating that his show had been ahead of its time in recognizing the true value of workers who were later universally acknowledged as essential to keeping society running during the greatest public health crisis in modern history. Fact 14. Deadliest Catch Connection. Mike Rowe was originally tapped to be the on-screen host of Deadliest Catch, the Discovery Channel's hit series about crab fishing in the dangerous waters of the Bering Sea, but when the network picked up Dirty Jobs for production at the same time, executives forced him to make a difficult choice between appearing as the face of one show or the other. This decision came at a crucial moment in Rowe's career when Discovery Channel was investing heavily in both programs and needed to establish clear identities for each series without confusing audiences about which show featured which host. Rowe had already begun working with the Deadliest Catch production team and had actually shot footage aboard several crab boats while learning about the incredibly hazardous and physically demanding work of commercial crab fishing in some of the world's most treacherous waters. The original plan called for him to serve as an on-camera guide who would help viewers understand the complexities and dangers of this specialized form of fishing, similar to how he would later function on Dirty Jobs by working alongside professionals in various occupations. When Discovery Channel executives presented him with the ultimatum, Rowe chose to pursue Dirty Jobs as his on-screen hosting opportunity, recognizing that the broader concept of exploring different occupations across all 50 states offered more creative possibilities than focusing exclusively on the crab fishing industry. This decision meant that all the footage of him working on the fishing boats was ultimately unused in the final version of Deadliest Catch, though he did make occasional appearances in later episodes when he interviewed boat captains during season finales. Instead of disappearing from Deadliest Catch entirely, Rowe transitioned into the role of narrator for the series, providing the dramatic voiceover work that helped establish the show's distinctive tone and atmosphere. This compromise allowed him to maintain a connection to both programs simultaneously, lending his recognizable voice to one of Discovery Channel's most successful series, while building his own television hosting career through the hands-on adventures that would make Dirty Jobs a cultural phenomenon. Fact 15. Eagle Scout Service Project. Mike Rowe's legendary career as one of television's most recognizable narrators can be traced back to his Eagle Scout service project in 1979, when he was just 17 years old and working towards Scouting's highest rank as a member of Troop 16 in suburban Baltimore, Maryland. For his required community service project, the teenage Rowe chose to volunteer at the Maryland School for the Blind, where he spent considerable time reading aloud to students who relied on spoken word to access books and educational materials that sighted students could simply read for themselves. This early experience of using his voice to help others access information and stories proved to be a formative moment in Rowe's development, introducing him to the power of clear, engaging speech, and helping him discover that he had both the vocal ability and the patience required to hold listeners' attention for extended periods. The work required him to develop skills in pacing, pronunciation, and emotional expression that would later become essential tools in his professional broadcasting career, though at the time he had no idea that reading to blind students would eventually lead to a lifetime of talking for a living. The Eagle Scout program's emphasis on community service and leadership development provided Rowe with his first real opportunity to understand how individual efforts could make a meaningful difference in other people's lives, a lesson that would later influence his approach to hosting dirty jobs and celebrating workers whose contributions often go unrecognized. The Maryland School for the Blind project also gave him early exposure to the idea that communication could be a form of service, helping people access experiences and information they might not otherwise be able to enjoy. Rowe has specifically cited this Eagle Scout service project as one of the reasons he became interested in narrating and writing, demonstrating how childhood experiences can plant seeds that don't bloom until decades later. The Boy Scouts of America eventually recognized the connection between his scouting background and his later success by presenting him with the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award in 2012.